Welcome back. You've shared some really fascinating material this time, all focused on the book, The Small Penis Bible.
That's right. And for everyone listening, our aim here isn't just to give a summary. We want to really dig into the key ideas, and maybe tackle some of those common worries people have about penis size. It goes way beyond just numbers.
Absolutely. Because looking through this, it's clear it's not just about, well, physical size, is it?
No, not at all.
It connects so much to self-image, relationships, um, and all those societal pressures that kind of hang in the air.
Exactly. The book covers a lot of ground that probably resonates. Things like, the actual stats on average size, the whole psychology behind why people feel anxious about it,
Mhm.
societal attitudes, which aren't always helpful, and of course, all those enlargement methods advertised everywhere.
Right. And the author seems pretty clear on why most of those are, well, maybe not the best path.
Yeah, he really questions their effectiveness. Ultimately, the book kind of guides you towards hopefully more self-acceptance.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The myth-busting part about average size. Because I think, well, most people probably have this idea of what, 6, maybe 7 inches is average.
That is a super common belief, yeah. And the author hits that directly based on the research he's looked at. He argues pretty strongly that the average erect size is actually closer to 5 inches, around 5.2 inches specifically.
5.2. Wow. Okay, that's quite a bit different from the 6 or 7 inch idea.
It really is.
So why the big difference? Why is that perception so, skewed?
Well, the author points to a few things. First, there's a bias in who talks about it, right?
Okay.
Guys who are bigger are probably more likely to, mention it, whereas guys who are smaller might just stay quiet. So that shapes what we hear.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. Like a reporting bias.
Exactly. Then some of the older studies apparently had some issues, methodological flaws maybe, that led to higher numbers.
Right.
Plus, maybe a bit of wishful thinking, people rounding up when they talk about it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I can imagine that happens.
And we can't ignore porn, obviously.
Oh, definitely not. That sets a completely unrealistic standard for most people.
Totally. It features performers who are often, well, outliers, not representative of the general population.
So just to get a clearer picture then, what are the ranges the author talks about?
Right. So he mentions that about 68% of men, like the big middle chunk, fall somewhere between roughly 4.5 and 6.0 inches.
Okay, 4.5 to 6.0 covers most guys.
Yeah. And that means about 16%, so like 1 in 6 men, are under that 4.5-inch mark.
1 in 6, okay.
And then if you go smaller still, under about 3.7 inches, that's around 2.5% of men, maybe 1 in 40.
So statistically, being under 4.5 inches isn't actually that rare, even though it might feel that way because of the myths.
Exactly. And the author really wants us to shift how we think about that label, small. He says, statistically, we're talking about people we know, friends, family, partners maybe. Try not to jump to a negative judgment.
That's a good point. And what about the term micropenis? The author seems a bit wary of that label too.
Yeah, he expresses some real concern about what he calls diagnosis by statistic.
Diagnosis by statistic. What does that mean exactly?
Well, he questions how helpful it really is to draw a strict line in the sand, numerically speaking, like saying a 7-centimeter penis is abnormal, but 7.5 centimeters isn't.
Right.
It
Yeah.
feels kind of arbitrary, doesn't it? And does that label actually help the person deal with their feelings or find solutions?
So it's more like just putting someone in a box based on numbers rather than a useful medical thing.
That seems to be his point. And he even hints at, the potential social downsides. Could this kind of labeling lead to almost eugenics-like thinking if taken too far? He's really against creating labels that suggest someone is less than just because of where they fall on a chart.
That's a really significant ethical point he's raising there. Okay, so we've got a better handle on the actual size statistics. Let's move on to why this anxiety is so common. Where does it come from?
This is where it gets into the psychology and the social stuff. He argues that this anxiety nearly always stems from comparison.
Comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah, either real people or more often maybe those unrealistic images we see everywhere. And also from absorbing those judgments that society kind of imposes on us, often without us even realizing it.
Right, that constant subconscious measuring stick we use against some
Oh.
ideal. Can you give examples? Like, where do we see this playing out?
Oh, everywhere, really. Think about movies, jokes, even advertising sometimes. Male sexuality often gets tied to size, usually in an exaggerated way. There's this constant undertone of bigger is better.
Hmm.
And what's really telling, he points out, is that it's not just guys who are objectively smaller who feel this anxiety. Plenty of men with average or even larger sizes are
Yeah,
unhappy.
even average or larger.
Yeah, while at the same time, you'll find some men with smaller penises who are perfectly happy and confident.
That totally underlines that it's more about your head, your perception, and those external messages than the actual measurement.
Exactly right. And he calls out the internet, especially those penis enlargement websites.
Ah, yes, the sellers of hope,
Yeah.
or snake oil.
Well, he argues they actively make the problem worse by telling people that even average is small. It creates this insecurity that they can then, profit from.
It's literally an industry built on making people feel bad about themselves.
Pretty much. He also shares a bit about his own experiences with body image, reflecting on how these societal ideas seeped in even before he was really conscious of his own size. It shows how deep this stuff can run.
Okay, now for the big question, the one everyone probably wonders about. Does size actually matter? I feel like we expect a simple no, but the book sounds like it's a bit more complicated than that.
You're right. It's not just a simple yes or no. While the overall message is definitely reassuring, he does explore the nuances.
Okay, like what?
Well, for one, he points out that just like penises vary, so do vaginas and other openings. And interestingly, he mentions this concept of big dick problems that apparently gets discussed online.
Big dick problems.
Yeah. It highlights that bigger isn't automatically better and can come with its own challenges. Plus, the very practical point. A smaller penis can always enter a larger space. The reverse isn't always true.
Huh. That's a surprisingly straightforward, almost mechanical way to look at it.
It is. He also talks about context. Like, if it's someone you're never going to sleep with, their size is completely irrelevant to your life, right?
Yeah, obviously.
And when it is someone you might be intimate with, he suggests that if they make negative comments, it often says way more about their issues or insecurities than about you.
It's like projecting their own stuff onto you. That's a useful way to frame it.
Definitely. Now, it's clear he's mainly talking about heterosexual relationships based on his own life.
Yeah.
When he asks, does size matter to women, he presents some really interesting findings.
Okay, what does the research suggest?
So while, yes, some women do care a lot about size, he cites research indicating that a pretty significant number, maybe around 1 in 3, say it's of no concern to them at all.
1 in 3. Wow. That feels like a much bigger number than you'd expect based on, popular culture.
It really does challenge the narrative, doesn't it? For the rest, the surveys suggested size had some importance, but wasn't necessarily the deciding factor, especially compared to other things.
Like what other things?
Things like, fidelity, being attentive, kindness, having a sense of humor, confidence. Those consistently rank much, much higher in relationship importance than penis size.
So ultimately, the book brings it back to this idea that your penis size doesn't define your value, especially not in a loving relationship.
Exactly. It's about the whole package, the connection, the emotional stuff, all the other things that make intimacy work.
Okay, but what about people who are really bothered by it, and maybe they see all these ads for penis enlargement?
Yeah.
What's the book's take on those?
Yeah, he goes through the common methods, and he's pretty skeptical, to put it mildly.
Right.
He lumps them into categories that are basically ineffective, risky, or sometimes both. We're talking exercises, pumps, pills, lotions.
Usual suspects.
Yeah. Fillers, injections, even, wait for it, magic spells.
Magic spells.
Yeah.
Seriously. That shows how desperate some people must feel.
It really does. For the more, let's say, conventional sounding methods, he points out the financial aspect. People can spend a lot of money on stuff that just doesn't work as advertised.
Right, chasing a promise.
And maybe even more importantly, he says constantly looking for these fixes can actually make the anxiety worse. It keeps reinforcing the idea that there's something fundamentally wrong that needs correcting.
So it's like a feedback loop of anxiety and spending money.
Exactly. He does mention penis transplants briefly, acknowledging they're a major medical thing, but he immediately adds a strong note of caution. The emotional side, the societal implications, the psychological factors. It's incredibly complex. He even mentions a case where a transplant got reversed later.
Wow. Okay, so definitely not a simple fix, even technologically.
Not at all. Silicone implants get a mention too, but again, costly, not universally approved, and he raises this interesting point about potentially creating new anxieties like maybe falsy shaming down the
Yeah,
line.
trading one worry for another, potentially.
That seems to be the concern, yeah. His main thrust seems to be steering people away from these often questionable routes and towards working on the root anxiety itself, self-acceptance.
Right, addressing the cause, not just the symptom or perceived symptom.
Exactly.
The book also seems keen on debunking misinformation, right? Like those old wives' tales about how you can tell someone's size.
Oh, yeah, he definitely goes there. He takes apart that whole small dick spotting thing you see online sometimes.
It's like foot size or nose size or finger length.
All of that. He basically says it's nonsense, unreliable, often contradictory, and there's just no solid science behind any of it. Foot size, nose, finger ratio. Nope.
It's amazing how those myths stick around, though, isn't it?
It really is. He also digs into the nasty origins of linking penis size to things like IQ, totally unfounded and often rooted in racism, which is crucial to understand.
Important to call that out.
Definitely. And he touches on things like the Irish curse, warning against buying into harmful stereotypes like that.
It's a good reminder how these body anxieties can get tangled up with much uglier societal biases.
Okay, now this section title caught my eye. Lies, damn lies, and unexpected truths. What's in there?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a really interesting section. He starts by saying again that average size stats probably aren't that helpful if you're already anxious.
Right.
But then he throws out some surprising points. Like, he mentions some data suggesting women might actually cheat more often on partners with larger penises.
Get out. Really? That completely flips the script.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It challenges that whole idea that bigger size automatically equals more satisfaction or loyalty. He also suggests, maybe counterintuitively, that smaller penises might get hard faster.
And could be really good for certain kinds of more vigorous sex acts. Balls deep power fucking, I think was the phrase used.
Okay, so potential advantages there too.
Apparently. And he even throws in a kind of funny potential upside. Maybe public erections are less obvious and embarrassing if you're smaller.
Uh-huh. Okay, there's a silver lining, I guess.
And more seriously, he floats the idea that maybe having a smaller penis acts as a sort of ego check.
An ego check. How so?
Like maybe it encourages guys to focus more on developing other qualities, kindness, humor, intelligence, attentiveness, instead of relying solely on, well, perceived physical attributes.
So it could actually spur personal growth in other ways.
That's the idea. And this one was really surprising. He suggests that maybe being smaller could actually make you more noticeable initially in a dating context where size is often discussed or assumed. Like it breaks the mold and makes you stand out.
Huh. Reframing a perceived negative as something that makes you unique, maybe even an advantage.
Exactly. Shifting the perspective, finding the upsides.
That leads nicely into the whole journey of self-acceptance, which seems like a really central theme. How does the author talk about achieving that?
Yeah, it's core to the book. He uses his own story quite a bit,
Okay.
talking about feeling self-conscious when he was younger, how porn influenced him, and then how finding acceptance, partly through his wife's affirmation, really changed things for him. Sharing that makes it feel more real, you know?
Definitely. Shows it's possible, and how relationships can play a role.
For sure. And he makes this distinction between pride and shame about size, arguing neither really makes sense for something you didn't choose. The goal is self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And he even says maybe that journey starts by feeling loved and accepted by someone else first.
It's a really nice, hopeful thought, actually.
It is. He really stresses, don't blame your body part for the anxiety. Blame the negative messages you've absorbed.
Right. Redirect the blame to the societal input.
Exactly. And then he offers these like 3 pillars for tackling the anxiety. First, challenge the judgments others put on you. Second, challenge the judgments you put on yourself, especially comparing yourself to others. And third, really lean into your own strengths.
Okay, those sound like concrete steps people could actually try.
Yeah, he gives practical advice too, like for external judgments, filter out the noise, focus on facts, accept life's rhythms, and crucially, judge yourself against your own potential, not against anybody else.
Shifting that internal benchmark, that feels key.
Totally. If you focus on your strengths, it takes energy away from the negative stuff that fuels the anxiety.
Makes sense. Now let's get practical again. For a lot of listeners, the bottom line might be, okay, but what about sex? How does having a smaller penis actually affect sex? Does the book tackle that head on?
Oh, absolutely. It directly confronts that myth. Small penis equals bad sex.
No.
He hammers home that sex is about way, way more than just size. Great sex is possible, even common, without penetration at all. Imagination, connection, communication. Those are the biggies, he argues, much more than physical dimensions.
It's about the whole experience, the intimacy, not just one aspect.
Exactly. He also debunks that really harmful idea about needing a certain size to take someone's virginity and unpacks the whole loaded concept of virginity itself and the pressures around it.
That's important. That whole concept carries so much baggage.
It really does. He also touches on casual sex environments, suggesting they can be pretty tough if you already have size anxiety. Maybe navigate with caution, perhaps focus on connection over conquest. And he offers reassurance on things like fertility size doesn't affect it and condoms working fine regardless of size.
Good practical points.
Yeah, and advises strongly against dwelling on X's or making comparisons. That's just a recipe for feeling bad. He links size anxiety directly to performance anxiety
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
and suggests reframing sex. Think of it as play, recreation, connection, not some kind of test you have to pass.
That change in mindset sounds like it could make a huge difference.
It really could. Understanding anxiety itself, fear of the future, fueled by past hurts, can help too. He suggests focusing outward during sex, on your partner's body, their responses, rather than getting stuck in your own head.
Good advice.
And he even gets into specific positions, pointing out how a smaller penis might actually be better for clitoral stimulation in some ways, allowing for that long stroke effect against the clitoris during intercourse.
Oh, interesting. A specific potential advantage there.
Yeah. And he talks about toys, too. Not as replacements, he stresses, but as brilliant extras for everyone, regardless of size, to explore more pleasure. Rings, straps, extensions, he mentions pros and cons.
So adding dimensions, not compensating.
That's the message. He also explores the tricky relationship between size anxiety and kinks.
Oh, how so?
Well, he emphasizes making sure any kinks are genuinely liberating and not just, reinforcing negative feelings about yourself. He lists various kinks: SPH, small penis humiliation, exhibitionism, cuckolding, chastity, etc., but urges real self-awareness. Are you exploring freely or acting out of insecurity in a potentially harmful way?
That's a really important distinction to make. Nuanced.
Yeah, it really requires honesty with yourself. Then, broadening out, the book looks at the bigger picture: society, culture, and how they view penis size.
Right. Stepping back from the individual, what does he cover there?
Some really cool stuff, like pointing out how small penises were actually common, even maybe idealized in classical art, suggests the ancient Greeks and Romans valued other masculine traits more.
Wow, that's a great historical counterpoint to today's obsession.
Isn't it? He also analyzes the media frenzy around rumors about Hitler's penis size.
Oh.
His point is how dangerous it is to try and explain huge historical evils by blaming an individual's biology. It distracts from the real social and political causes and kind of accidentally supports dodgy biological determinism ideas.
That's a really sharp and important critique.
It is. And on a much sadder note, he acknowledges the tragic reality that some suicides have been linked to penis size anxiety, just underlining how serious this can be for some people.
Gosh, yeah, that really puts it in perspective. It's not trivial for everyone.
Not at all. He then looks at small dick jokes, categorizes them actually. Some are just mean, some misogynistic, some racist, but some can be maybe empowering or help normalize things. He encourages challenging the harmful ones.
Thinking critically about the humor we consume and repeat.
Exactly. He talks about that small penis pageant in New York. Initially skeptical, maybe, but saw its potential for challenging stigma and celebrating difference. Contrast that with, say, a painting of Trump that he felt just reinforced the stereotype. Small penis, vase bad person.
So it's about the intent and the impact of how difference is portrayed.
Precisely. He shares a personal story about a poem he wrote called Shorty, and how many men, even those you wouldn't think had anxieties, related to it. Shows how widespread the feeling is. And mentions events like the Big Small Penis Party real-world efforts to build acceptance.
Creating actual spaces for people to connect over this and feel less alone.
Yeah, challenging the shame openly.
Okay, so wrapping this up, bringing it all together from the Small Penis Bible. What are the absolute key things you think our listeners should take away from this deep dive?
Okay, number one, average size is probably smaller than you think, around 5.2 inches erect. Number two, anxiety about it is super common, often fueled by society and comparisons, not reality.
Right.
3, size is not the be-all and end-all for good sex or relationships. Things like kindness, connection, confidence matter way more. And 4, the real goal is self-acceptance. That's crucial.
And that core message that echoes throughout your penis size just does not define your worth as a human being.
Exactly. Challenge the negative stuff, internal and external. Embrace who you are.
And the book offers resources too, right, for people who want to explore more.
Yeah, definitely. Websites, forums, videos, podcasts, lots of places to find more info or connect with others if that feels helpful.
Great. So, as we finish up, maybe a final thought for everyone listening based on all this. Now that you've heard about the realities and anxieties around penis size, what's one judgment, maybe about yourself, maybe about others, related to body image that you might reconsider?
Or maybe looking at how much pressure society puts on this one thing, what other seemingly normal standards out there might actually be worth questioning. It's definitely food for thought. Keep exploring, keep questioning.